Ukraine versus Russia. Will this war ever end? Here recently, Trump called Zelensky a dictator, and Trump is trying to find out, how do we have peace in Ukraine and Russia? We're going to unpack it and get into the facts and opinions today. So the war began on February 24th, 2022. So we're coming on about 3 years of war, 3 years of the Ukrainian war so far. There's an estimated, according to Newsweek, an estimated amount of 1 million people have died or been injured in this war, Ukrainians and Russians. And Trump says that the U.S. has sent $350 billion for Ukrainians' defense force. And Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, claims that they've only received about $75 billion, not the full $350 billion. And Trump has cut off funding, extra funding, to the Ukrainian defense forces. And here recently, Trump's delegates have met with Putin's delegates, the president of Russia, in Saudi Arabia to talk about how do we make peace. Interestingly, Zelensky, president of Ukraine, was not at these delegation meetings in Saudi Arabia. So Zelensky was quite upset about it. Here are some comments from Trump about Zelensky.
I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president. And I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land.
Right, so Trump feels that the war should never started, but the big part is that his comments have caused quite a stir among people, especially saying that Zelensky had started the war. So to follow this up, Trump posted on True Social, on Twitter, this post, we'll read it here. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. But didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization, and that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? We have a big, beautiful ocean as a separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast, or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something I'll admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried, Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. He actually called Zelensky a dictator. Zelensky did not like that. Let's see his response.
Unfortunately, President Trump, I have great respect for him as a leader of a nation that we have great respect for. The American people who always support us, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
So Zelensky has claimed that Trump has become a victim of Russian disinformation. Many people don't agree with Trump. Many people say that Zelensky is not a dictator. Here's some of the contradiction.
Zelensky is not a dictator. He won a free and fair election, actually in a landslide. And the irony here is that he's fighting Putin, who maintains power through sham elections, has his opponents jailed, or they seem to mysteriously die.
Now, what's really important to understand is it's not actually important what the answer is to the question, is Zelensky a dictator? Because Trump thinks he is a dictator. And Trump happens to hold all the cards in the negotiations. You see, Zelensky is the president of a country. He is a respected man in many people's eyes. But he's the president of a small country. He's the president of a country that needs American aid. Without President Trump's support, without the financial support, without congressional approval, without all these things, Zelensky doesn't have a lot of power. Take a look at that.
I mean, without U.S. aid, he told me in that interview a year ago, they will lose the war. What happens? What are his options now?
He doesn't have many options. The Europeans can try to ramp up supplies, but the truth is, again, the whole Western system has been built on the idea that America is the pivot. America is the guarantor. You know, even when Europeans build their military spending up, they buy American goods. That has been the deal since Vietnam. It's difficult to recall another moment where the United States has just decided that it wanted peace so badly that it was essentially just going to surrender the struggle.
I want to show you another perspective. You see, I'm an American, and maybe if you're an American or you live in another country, you can relate to this. You see, over the last 3 years, Ukraine has relied heavily on American finances, and Zelensky has been the president of Ukraine using American finances to help fund his defenses. But over the last 3 years, especially over the last 6 months, I myself have watched Zelensky repeatedly blame the lack of U.S. support for their struggle. Here recently, Zelensky claimed we haven't received all the money. We've only received $75 billion of the $350 billion promised to us. And that sounds whatever, but think about what he said. We've only received $75 billion. He claims that they have received from the United States $75 billion. If anything, he should be thanking us. But repeatedly, he seems to be blaming the United States of America. And so think about that from Trump's perspective. Trump comes in office and he says we're going to bring peace. And as soon as he gets in there, Zelensky starts demanding more money. This small country that needs your help starts demanding money. I think about it this way. Think about if you had a friend who they said, I need help paying for my lunch. Every Tuesday, would you buy my lunch? I've been struggling with money, struggling with finances. Every Tuesday, if you could help me out, buy my lunch. And you said, you know what? I'll help you out. I'll start buying your lunch every Tuesday. And you kept doing it maybe 20 weeks, 30 weeks. 30 weeks in, they come to you. And they say, you know, I think I want Wednesday lunch too. I'd like lunch every Tuesday and Wednesday. And you were like, no, I bought you lunch every Tuesday for the last 30 weeks. In fact, I think I'm done buying you lunch. What if your friend reacted in an angry way and started blaming you for them not having lunch anymore? How would you feel? That's probably how Trump feels. Trump's goal is to bring peace. And whether you think he's a dictator, if he's a dictator or not, whatever you think about him, doesn't really matter because Trump holds the cards, and Trump is saying, you know what? I'm here to bring peace. And he says wild statements sometimes to kind of get people off their rocker, to bring them to the negotiation table. Check this out.
He's fighting for his country.
I think what Trump also is good at, though, is when he comes to the negotiating table, he'll hit you with an outrageous claim, and then we'll scale it back from there.
Yeah,
right.
That's totally
fine. Don't. By the way, don't take him at face value every time. When he comes out of the gate, sometimes he comes out hard and strong and outrageous, knowing that you're going to counter, and this is how we negotiate. Yeah. And at the end of the day, Biden couldn't get a peace on the books. I'm telling you, this guy, at the end of the day, is probably going to achieve this peace. And that's better than having this war rage on. This is what he does. He's colorful.
This war has been going on for 3 years, billions of dollars spent, 1 million lives lost or injured. It's time for the war to be over. The question that no one's really been able to answer is, how do you determine who's won the war? There's really no finish line to this war. There's no end in sight. And President Trump, whether you like it or not, has decided that he is going to move to end the war. With or without the support of Zelensky, with or without the support of America, he's going to end the war. That's what he's decided. we will see what happens next with these negotiations. I'll see you next time.